Christian parenting. So, you're having a baby. Wow, guys, today is the final episode of season 2. Thank you so much for coming along on this journey. It has been so encouraging and rewarding for us, and we hope it has been the same for you. Today, we have a very special guest, Max Lucado, and we'll be chatting about helping our kids process their feelings, a very, very relevant topic to me raising 2- and 4-year-old boys. Max Lucado is a pastor, speaker, and best-selling author who, in his own words, writes books for people who don't read books. He serves the people of Oak Hills Church in San Antonio, Texas, and his message is for the hurting, the guilty, the lonely, and the discouraged. God loves you. Let him. Max and Dylan now live in San Antonio, Texas. They have 3 grown daughters, 2 sons-in-law, and 2 grandchildren. Let's jump right in. Well, Max, thank you so much for being on here with me today. I'm so excited to chat with you because this is a subject near and dear to my heart. My eldest son, Wesley, is 4, and he is a boy with very big emotions. I also have a 2-year-old, Wells, and he's learning how to feel and express like crazy right now. So to kick us off, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your family?
Well, first, thanks for letting me be on your program.
Yeah.
What a great idea. Isn't it a great day in which we live, in which if you have a heart for starting some type of podcast, it's doable.
Yes,
It's doable.
it is the best.
I'm so proud of you. Way to go.
Thanks.
Way to go. I'm a granddad. I'm 66 now. We have 3 daughters. I have 1 wife.
I love it.
and our 3 daughters, of the 3, 1 has children.
Gotcha.
And those children live just 10 minutes from us.
That's the dream.
You have a 4 and a 2-year-old. My daughter has a 6 and a 3-year-old.
Oh, is it boys or girls or both?
Both.
Love it.
We have Rosie. She's about to turn 6. And we have, we call him Little Max, or Max Wesley.
Sweet.
And he's 3. And he's just the cutest thing. In fact, can I tell you a funny story?
Yes, please.
Yesterday, Wednesday is Dee Day. And so
it.
we're in charge of them. So the last Dee Day, which was the day before yesterday, actually, my daughter Jenna came over to pick them up.
Mm-hmm.
And the 3 of us, Dylan, my wife, my daughter Jenna, and I were sitting in our den chatting, and the 2 kids were outside we have a little bit of property, about 3 acres, and they love to go out and look for rocks.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were out on their own looking for rocks. They're great. We do that all the time. They're fine. And so after a few moments, Rosie, the 6-year-old, burst into the room saying, 911. Oh, that's so funny. She was saying, where she learned that, I cannot say. 911, emergency, just like that. And we jumped up and said, what's wrong? And she said, what she said brought a smile to our faces and a halt to our feet. She said, Little Max filled his pants pockets with rocks and his jeans fell down. He was stuck. Oh. And so we ran out and went down our path that leads out of our property. And sure enough, there's Max Wesley, all 3 years of him. He's seated on the asphalt. The only thing separating his rear end from the asphalt was his Spider-Man
underpants.
And I said, Max, can you get up? And his voice was so small. He said, no.
Oh, bless.
I said, we'll try. And so when he stood, it was so funny because he tried to pull his pants up. But sure enough, he had rocks in both front pockets, both back pockets. And his pants had just fallen down to his ankles.
It's amazing.
And he had no idea what to do.
I love
My wife said, Max, there's a sermon illustration. And I said, that's it right there, man.
That's amazing.
All of us get weighed down in life. Yeah. We get tangled up. We need help.
Yeah. Our pants fall
So
down. We're stuck.
pants fall down.
That's amazing. I love it. Yeah. Kids provide lots of sermon illustrations constantly.
They do.
It's so great. Well, you recently released a new children's book, Where'd My Giggle Go? Congratulations on your release.
Thank you.
And I will say we have a copy, and Wesley has been picking it like every night to read before bed because I think it really resonates with him. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the book and why you wrote it?
All parents, all grandparents, all caretakers know that children don't know what to do with emotions.
Yeah.
They just feel ambushed. Sometimes they're
Mm.
happy, sometimes they're sad, sometimes they're mad, sometimes they're grumpy. And part of being a parent, a grandparent, or caretaker is helping our children understand how to manage emotions.
Yeah.
In fact, we adults need help in managing
No kidding.
emotions. And so this little story is just a story I created for my grandkids and then turned into a book on how to handle the grumps. When all of a sudden you wake up. Well, the first phrase of the book, the first verse of the book is, I woke up this morning with a frown on my face. I looked for my smile, looked all over the place. I looked high, I looked low, I looked out in the snow. Can somebody tell me, where'd my giggle go? And that's an honest question that kids have. They don't know where their giggle went. They don't know why they're sad. They don't know why some days you wake up not happy. And so children benefit when we, as their caretakers, give them a way to explore managing their emotions.
Yeah.
In this little book, all I'm trying to do is give parents a language, some vocabulary to use with their kids. And then also a little teaching exercise, because the little boy in this story, he couldn't find his giggle anywhere.
Yeah.
But it finally began to return when he began to give a giggle away. And that's a biblical principle. It is more blessed to give than receive. And so really, for all of us, happiness happens when we try to make others happy.
Yeah.
And so that's the idea of this book. It's just a tool to help children cope with the emotions that they face.
Yeah, I've honestly been processing that so much lately because I think, you just don't know what you don't know. And so being a new parent, I mean, I feel like a new parent still, I've been kind of shocked at the onslaught of emotions and feelings from my boys, mostly my 4-year-old because he's older and I've just been processing like this idea, like you've been saying, that it's my job. And I honestly feel like it's this great honor to teach my boys how to sort through their feelings and emotions, and I thought, gosh, if I don't teach them, who will? And so I would love if you could just speak to that at all, like parents, like kind of thinking of it as our role to help our children process their feelings and why that is important for us to take it seriously.
Yeah, because if we leave it to them, they can go down the wrong path and draw erroneous conclusions about their emotions.
Yeah.
For example, the fact that I feel this way means I'm not a good person. The fact that I feel this way means God is punishing me. The fact that I feel this way means that I'm, underdeveloped. A child wouldn't use that word, but grown-ups do. Let's help our children see that emotions are simply a way that we feel.
Yeah.
They're not a definition of who we are.
Yeah.
I find this to be really true in helping adults cope with anxiety, because often people believe that the emotion of anxiety is a sin, that if I was really a Christian, I wouldn't feel anxious. That's simply not the case. Scripture never calls for us to, not feel any anxiety. When the Apostle Paul said, be anxious for nothing, he used a Greek phrase there that means don't allow yourself to be perpetually anxious. So anxiety comes with life, but the prison of anxiety is optional. And so when we can help our children deal with these emotions and not make assumptions about the presence of an emotion means that I'm a different type of person or a bad person, we're doing them a huge favor. And seriously, if we don't do it, who will?
Yeah.
I mean, nobody else will. That's why our presence in their lives is simply so important.
Yeah, that's really good because I just feel like I've noticed, him already beginning to pick up on things like shame, and when he does feel a certain way or act a certain way out of a certain emotion, and I wonder, things that teachers say, or so really being a corrective voice for that of, their worth, their value, who they are, despite how they may feel in a moment. I love that. That's really good. Another thing I have noticed is that Wesley really picks up on my vibe, if you will, or like my stress levels, my anger, my joy. And I noticed that I really have this effect on his emotions. And like I can tell it really does affect him, like when I'm super stressed about something. So, how can parents really affect a child's emotional well being, and why is it important? I think even to just be aware of that and communicate some clarity to them in that.
You're exactly right. And what an important reminder that we set the tone, we create the atmosphere
Yeah.
in our home. Uh, we don't often see ourselves as in our role as parents as leaders, but we really are. And
Yeah.
leaders set the tone. They set the tone, whether it be in an office building, whether it be on a sports team, whether it be in a church as a pastor. We kind of set the tone. We if we're anxious, if we're troubled, if we're bitter, if we're demanding, then that's gonna radiate like pain in our when we need
Mm-hmm.
a root canal. They
Yeah.
ask if you have radiating pain. Well, our atmosphere can suffer when we bring that type of attitude into our household. I recall my father. My father was so great at changing the tone in the house. When he came home, everything just calmed down. My mom, I love her to love her to pieces. Of course, she's in heaven now, but she was edge. She was always on edge. She was a fearful person. And my dad was the calming presence. And whenever his truck would pull up in the driveway, I would just let out a sigh of relief because I knew that his emotions would come in and mom would calm down, and consequently, we would calm down. And so I guess what we're saying is don't underestimate
Yeah.
the fact that your emotions are contagious,
Mm.
and seek to be that calming presence
Yeah.
in your household.
Yeah, I've been even talking to my therapist about it some because I really noticed how it was affecting Wes, and I noticed he was almost trying to buffer me. When I get really stressed about something, he'd be like, "I love you, mommy. It's okay, mommy. Whatever." It's so sweet and so kind, but I'm like, I don't want you to think that that is your role. That is not your role as my child. And like, she was telling me how important it is to communicate, like, I'm not stressed out because of you. Like, this has
Mm-hmm.
nothing to do with you. Mommy loves you. This is something completely unrelated. Or when I, snap at him or something for when I'm stressed, communicating, I'm so sorry. Mommy did not mean to do that because this is not about you. This is about what mommy's feeling right now. And that's been like a really good differentiator for me, but it has really helped me to, like you're saying, embrace peace and just kind of try and even like step away when I have those moments so that it's not because I just am really aware that my son is very empathetic and very sensitive to, like you're saying, the atmosphere and what's going on in the house and what people around him are feeling. And so, yeah.
Yeah. I think it helps, and I love what you said there because I think it helps to help our children understand why we are in a funk or why
Yeah.
we're upset or why we're
Yeah.
worried. And like you say, separate them, because they will assume that it's their fault,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
They will assume that it's their fault.
Yeah.
And
I've
if you
noticed
can
that.
tell them, say, honey, this has nothing to do with you, and honey, I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to be okay. I just kind of
Yeah.
need to get through this. I'm just not feeling really good right now, but
Yeah.
I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
That's a good message to give our children because
Mm.
for all they know, they're never going to see the happy you again.
Right.
And so helping them see you're going to be okay is really
Yeah,
important.
modeling for them the almost like emotional progression, like
Yeah, I like that.
how to get
I like
through the feelings that you feel. Because
Yeah,
then they learn like, oh, I don't have to stay angry. I don't have to stay
yeah.
weepy or sad or whatever it may be. Yeah.
And that's the whole idea here. We're
Yeah.
helping our children see that they are not essence of their emotions. That
Yeah.
emotions come and go, just like weather comes and
Yeah.
goes. You know, or
Yeah.
some days it's pretty, some days it's stormy.
It's good.
Some days our bodies react in such a way it causes our emotions to get into a valley or into a funk.
It's true.
And that's okay. It's okay. So helping our kids weather those
Yeah.
seasons is a wonderful gift to give.
So, feelings are pretty big for some kids, my kids especially, and it's really been a struggle for me to know how to handle and like diffuse the big mood swings of my toddlers and young kids. I was curious if you could maybe tell us about a time that you had to parent or grandparent a child with really big feelings and how you handled it.
Well, I just got in the car and drove away and left them with mom. Oh, our three daughters, each as your kids do, they each had and have their own personalities.
Yeah.
And learning to see that they're three distinct individuals
Mm.
was good for me as a young father so many years ago. Again, I'm 66 now, so I'm a long way away from those days, but I've been reminded, having these two grandchildren, of just how different they are. Rosie,
Yeah.
the 6-year-old girl, can be shy and quiet and reserved. Little Max, he is just so outgoing, so friendly. They are completely different.
Yeah.
And accepting that they entered the world with different personalities is just really a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
It was good for me when I was taught that it's not my job to create a personality, but just to help the children manage the personality with which they were born,
Yeah.
their temperaments, their skills, their outlooks, their attitudes.
Hmm.
I really believe that there's an oak already inside the acorn.
Yeah.
That there's a tree inside there that God has already determined, and our privilege is to let that tree just begin to blossom
Hmm.
and become that person that child was meant to be.
I love that.
I'd encourage parents, take note of what gets your kids excited. What are they good at? Expose them to a variety of things so they can really experience all of life. But take note of those areas, those aptitudes, those abilities where they truly shine. And please do not assume that just because you are good at something or have a certain capacity, that they will as well. They are individuals created by God, woven together in a unique and wonderful way.
Mm.
So observe. As parents, let's be observers of our children and help develop the children as God intended for them to develop.
I love that so much because, like you're saying, I'm already noticing that my boys are like completely different. And I think, and you had 3 girls. And so it's funny, kind of with the same gender, you're like, you expect them to be really similar at least. I don't know. I did, I guess. They could not be more different. Like Wells is explosive, he's authoritative, and he's the 2-year-old. He's like, but Wesley, even as a 2-year-old, was like very kind of like cautious, sensitive, really aware of other people. And so it's been really interesting to love them like for who they are and almost like not stifle the parts that make them different, or like I feel like they should even be more like me and my husband. Or so I love what you're saying about paying attention to your children and teaching them to embrace who they are and what makes them special and what makes them different, and just creating space for them to flourish in that. It's beautiful.
Yeah, that's really important. There's that phrase in the book of Proverbs: train up a child in the way they should go, and in their latter years they'll not depart from it. But that passage has been misused, I think,
Yeah.
to tell parents that if you get your kids into a Bible class, or if you expose them to Scripture, then they'll never wander away from the path. I've come to understand that passage really does not mean that. That phrase, train up a child in the way they should go, is literally a phrase that train up a child in the way God intended, in their unique ability and capacity, their skill set, their strength. Train them up. Some people have a capacity to manage people. Others want to work with numbers. Others want to work with music. And so find that unique capacity, that sweet spot that God has already placed within that child. And what that scripture is saying is activate that child in the way God intended for them to go. And when they're old, they'll succeed.
Yeah.
They'll love it. Applaud those things that they do well, and don't force them down a path they were not intended to go. My dad, God bless him, was a mechanic. His son, God bless him, is anything but a mechanic.
Yeah.
I know my dad would have loved to have me at his side repairing cars.
Sure.
My older brother was that. My older brother could do what my dad could do. I could not tell the difference between a carburetor and a spare tire. I mean, I'm so inept in that area. To my dad's credit, he never pushed me to be like him.
That's amazing.
What a blessing that was for me.
Yeah.
That he saw that I had an aptitude with words. I like books. And so he would take me to the library. He never finished high school. My dad did not. He never finished high school. But here he's taking his son to the library. And I've come to realize as an adult how much I appreciate that about my father and the way he raised me.
Yeah, I love that. That's beautiful. Well, Max, this has been so good, so encouraging. I love it. I know the listeners are going to love it too. As we wrap up, is there any final advice or wisdom that you would have for parents of young kids?
Well, I would say, God bless you. God bless you.
For real.
You just, especially during these days in which the children take so much. Please do not resent. Please do not resent what it requires to raise a child. It's a season when the children are young, and the things you were able to do just a few years ago have to be put on hold now. The golf game, keep those golf clubs in the garage just for a time. Maybe this isn't the season to develop that tennis capacity. I just recognize that you got about 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 years here that you'll never have again. Yeah. You'll never have again. Now's the time for you to say, okay, my job is these kids. My job is these kids. I hate to keep telling you how old I am, but I'm 66. Yesterday afternoon at about 3 or 4 in the afternoon, my work was finished. And I looked up and I had 2 or 3 hours. Believe it or not, I had 2 or 3 hours before I had a commitment last evening. So I went out and I played 9 holes of golf. And as I was playing, I thought, now I never would have done this when my children were small. Right. First of all, my wife would have shot me. But it's a leisure, it's a luxury that I have now. Yeah. I do not despise, I do not resent the fact that during those times in which they were young, I would have taken those 2 to 3 hours or 4 to 5 hours and taken them to the park or taken them on a walk or helped them learn to ride their bicycle. It's precious, these moments that you have. May God give you strength to use them wisely.
So good. I needed that. Wow, Max. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It was a blessing and an honor to talk to you. I'm so thankful for your ministry and all your work that you're doing, and especially for this sweet little book. And so have a wonderful rest of your day.
You have a terrific work you're doing there, and may God give you strength. I'll look forward to talking to you again sometime.
What a beautiful and encouraging conversation with Max Lucado. I really needed that, and it touched some places in my heart, and I hope it did for you too. If you would like to get your own copy of Where'd My Giggle Go, you can head on over to maxlucado.com and find it there, along with tons of other resources that he's created. He is an amazing man, and man, it was just such an honor to get to speak with him today. We want to encourage you to follow our podcast, subscribe, follow along so that you are notified anytime a new episode comes out. You can always go to christianparenting.org to find our workbook, A Parent's Guide to a New Baby. It is our honor to walk with you guys. In the show notes, we have an email if you'd like to get in touch with us in some way and reach out. We love to honestly just hear about how you're doing, how the podcast is affecting you. If you're reading the workbook, how it's affecting you and your marriage and your time with your children. children. We love you guys, and we're honored to do this with you. We know parenting a newborn is real hard, but we are here to help.